Hey guys, this is Arden again with another video. I wanted to talk about my thoughts on the WoW Classic community. I was playing up until last month when I decided to quit. So you have two phases. There's two parts to WoW Classic. You have the leveling phase, and then you have like the raiding phase. The leveling phase I felt was pretty similar to how it is in like old WoW. Kind of just level up, do your own thing. It was pretty fun actually. I had a lot of fun doing it. And the only difference is it was probably a little bit busier than it was. Sometimes you have to wait on quests, especially like in early classic WoW. It was super busy, so you just be like waiting on stuff, and there's people everywhere. But overall, it was actually pretty fun. And going on to the biggest difference was really is like in the end game. The first big difference I noticed is there's like this buff meta going on in the end game where you have to get like the Onyxia buff and then the Farian buff, and later it was like the ZG buff, and then there's Felwood buffs, the Dark Moon Fair buffs, and then you would spend all this time getting all these buffs before every raid, which wasn't a big deal when it was just like Onyxia and Molten Core. But once like all these other raids coming out, it's like several days a week, and you spend more time getting all these buffs than you would do actually clearing the raid. The raid might only take an hour. You spend like an hour and a half, too, trying to like squeeze in every little buff you can. And me personally, I didn't get every single one, but there were people in my guild who did. But after a while, it just gets like really tedious and boring. It's like, is this like World of Buffcraft or what? Like, is this fun? Like, am I having fun here? And me personally, I wasn't. So I just like, all right, I'm done. But in old WoW, that really wasn't the case. Like buffs were seen as like, oh, look, the Nixia buff drop, because there weren't as many raiding guilds then, and people weren't clearing stuff as much because people didn't know how. People were either new to MMOs or they were like new to World of Warcraft, and guilds weren't sharing strats with other guilds. So if like somebody beat something, they weren't going to tell you about it. You have to figure that out for yourself. So that was kind of because of those reasons. That's kind of what made the game harder back then. Is just like it wasn't actually harder. It might have been harder because it was on like an earlier patches as they came out, but people were just learning. So just it was harder just based on people's learning curve. Now everybody knows how to do everything before the game even comes out, and it's just like super easy now. And because of the fact that it is super easy, people don't care as much about their guildmates. They care more about the loot. Now, people cared about the loot back in vanilla also, but it was a couple notches lower than it is now, because now there's nothing to figure out, and everyone's like looking at a spreadsheet. They're like, oh, I got to get the phase 1 BIS, phase 2 BIS, phase 3 BIS. Then there was like pre-raid BIS, and there's like all these BIS slots, and this is all anybody ever talked about. And like, at least my guild in particular, 90% of the conversations that took place was just about like items. Like, can we talk about like something like as people or anything? Like sometimes, it just seemed like loot was more important than anything else. And after a while, it just gets tiring after a while. And the reason people want all this is because they're trying to like dominate the damage meters, and everybody's really focused on having all these mods. Like, do we need all these mods? This is literally like the easiest like game ever. Like, it's so easy now. Like, it's just crazy. And then there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. People talking about how good they are. And what's interesting is, since there's no real rating system, it's easy to say you're really good. For example, like in Arena, there's actually a rating system. So if you say you're good, you better have a rating to back it up, or otherwise people are just going to laugh at you, right? And there's like class balance things, but generally a rating system keeps people in check from bragging too much and claiming they're like the best or whatever. But there's none of that in vanilla. People just say they're awesome, and then really like they just like link some arbitrary damage meter on some website. It's like, look how good I am. It's like I don't know. Like, you're probably not good. There's only one button to push. It's like, good job, you did good on the damage meter at some point, and you got all these different buffs where other people might not have. And these websites will say like, oh, I'm the 99th percentile for my class. That's like, okay, you press Frostbolt the most, and you got the most buffs. Like, good job. But really, the best guilds in these in Classic WoW are the ones who actually do try really hard, and they clear stuff super fast, because they did it on private servers or whatever. Those are probably like the best like guilds. I don't know if you can determine the best player based on that, but those are the best organized guilds. But anyways, there's just a lot of gatekeeping going on, and it's really like a really toxic feeling. And another thing is like there's another difference is back in old WoW, a lot of the loot system was DKP because a lot of these guilds came over from like EverQuest guilds, which is where DKP was prominent. So DKP was a lot more popular back then. Now it seems like everybody's doing loot council. I don't like loot council personally. I prefer DKP. Loot council, there's a lot of bias going on, even if people aren't trying to be biased. I don't think DKP is perfect either, though. And there's a lot of different DKP systems. I don't want to get into all that here. Probably the best is like a combination of the two, where you have DKP, and then certain items are funneled into certain players by officers. So, like, for example, we had a Thunder Fury binding drop, and this warrior who came in from a different guild, he came into our guild, and he was still a recruit. And I'm like, how does this guy get a Thunder Fury binding already? This was like early classic. Well, apparently he was the guild leader of this other guild. Then the guild blew up, and there was some drama, and it was all just really fishy. So now we got this ex-guild leader in our guild with half a binding, and I'm like, okay, like this is kind of strange. And he was kind of just giving off weird vibes in general. And then what happens is literally like his first raid with us, the other half of the Thunder Fury binding dropped, and we had other tanks who were already in our guild prior, and they were like, they should have gotten this binding, but they gave it to this recruit guy so he can complete it. And guess what happened? Oh, the guy left. Oh, big surprise. And then it turns out the dude eBay's his account. Like, oh, well, there you go. Like you get what you ask for when you're giving a recruit a Thunder Fury binding. But that's just kind of like an example of an error with loot council. It's easy to mess things up if you have the wrong people making the decisions. Our guild try to rotate people every month to try to make it as fair as possible. But then you run into issues like people don't know every class, they don't know every player. For example, if you have two people who want a trinket, one guy talks a lot and is more popular. The other guy works just as hard and contributes just as much and has been in the guild just as long, but he's not as popular, or he just doesn't talk as much. Maybe he's a nice guy too. He doesn't choose to talk as much. Loot council will tend to give it to the person who they have a warm feeling towards. So this other person who might be more popular will probably win the item. And I've seen that happen a lot. So, loot council is like really big in Classic WoW. I don't really think it's a great idea unless you have like a really tight-knit group of friends together who can all agree and there's no drama, but that's like not the case in most cases. And then so you have all this best in slot gear. Everyone's trying to get all the best gear. It's like, what are you trying to get this gear for? Like one Onyxia buff is worth like 8 pieces of gear. So like if you have a blue and you win an epic, like how much are you really upgrading here? Like it doesn't even seem worth it to make it have a huge, like every piece of gear doesn't even seem like a huge deal. Like if I win a piece or I don't win a piece, it's kind of like, okay, I have a buff that's like 10 of these pieces, so like, okay, I'll just wait for the next piece, I guess. But it just trivializes the importance of the loot. Like, this loot doesn't feel like it really helps that much when everyone's just overpowered anyway. And, outside of raids, all you can really do with this loot is you can do 5 bans faster, or you can like stand around and Ironforge and look cool, I guess, if you want to do that. But everybody kind of looks cool. Everyone's decked out in epic, so it almost feels like all these epics feel like everybody's wearing greens because everyone has the same items. Like it's like live to some extent. I assume I haven't played live in a while, but I assume it's basically the same thing. The only thing really that I would think it's important to get gear for is if you PvP a lot, and I'm sure. I got High Warlord in Classic, and I can tell you a lot of the games we won is just because we outgeared people. We were pretty, we had a good team, but we definitely won a lot of games just because other teams just were wearing shit gear. And now everyone's kind of wearing the same gear, so maybe it's a little bit more fair than it was, but I just get the feeling that the PvP community now is like more toxic than ever. I know a lot of servers are like rotating rank 14 slots, and That didn't happen on every server back in the day. Like it may have a little bit, but back in the day, at least on my server, like I had to just simply beat everybody the last few weeks. I had to get rank 1 to get mine because other people weren't like trying to rotate with me. They were trying to compete against me. So, it's just a lot different for that. And really, the last thing to cover here is there's a lot of bots in Classic WoW. There were bots in original WoW too, but now it's like on a whole new level. I saw a video of a bot who like literally you can pay him gold. He'll like pull the whole entire ZG instance for you, pull all the trash to the zone in, AE it all down, and then he just like he's like floats up in the air and pulls it. like what? Like it's just crazy the technology now. So the bots are everywhere, and Blizzard doesn't really seem to care that much. They just kind of let it slide, and every once in a while they send out a ban wave. But what this does is it inflates deflates the value of gold, or inflates, but it makes gold worth less. It's like inflation, and it deflates the value. So like everyone has their epic mount. Like epic mounts aren't epic anymore. Epic gear doesn't feel epic. Everybody's wearing like the latest raid gear. Back in original WoW, it was a little bit different. Like an epic mount, for a little while at least, it was actually epic. It was kind of cool to see somebody on their epic mount, or cool to have a Thunder Fury. Now there's like, you see every time you go to Thunder Fury, you probably see at least a few of them just walking around in Ironforge. But yeah, it just seems like the overall value of things has been deflated a lot. But anyways, those are kind of my thoughts. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please like it, and also please subscribe because I'm actually having a lot of fun making these. So if you want to see more, just let me know. All right, thanks guys. Bye.